52 episodes, 52 ordinary people, 52 real stories about things that affect overall health. Because there is a lot more that goes into being healthy than food and fitness. Inspiration, support, a new perspective, and knowledge. You'll find that and more here on the Healthability Project.
Welcome to the Healthability Project. I'm Robin McKenna. Every one of us has had the experience of smiling or having a complete change of mood at the sound of a particular song or a particular type of music. Think of how you feel when you are at a concert, or even hours or days after you've left the concert. There is a large and growing body of research confirming the effects of music on health and well-being. Music can be transformative. It influences our brain, helping to relieve stress, anxiety, pain, and even improve focus. For some, simple access to an app, a radio, or the good old-fashioned vinyl does the trick. However, there are many that need more support. Music therapy is a growing field that aims to provide a deeper level of support and has shown to be a promising alternative to traditional forms of therapy. My guest today is Eric Pierce. Eric is a board-certified music therapist and founder of Lagom Healing. He merges his passion for music with therapeutic expertise to aid clients in achieving life balance. With a master's in music therapy from NYU Steinhardt, Eric accumulated more than a decade of experience throughout New York City hospital systems. His advocacy for music's transformative power on mental health led him to become a sought-after speaker at retreats and conferences. At Lagom, Eric provides personalized psychotherapy utilizing music as a conduit for self-discovery and healing. He empowers his clients to navigate life's complexities by fostering a deeper connection with music, ultimately guiding them towards greater harmony and well-being. Eric's compassionate approach and dedication to his craft make him a trusted ally in his clients' journeys toward holistic wellness. Thanks so much for joining me today, Eric. I am really glad to have you on the Healthability Project, and I am really excited to dive into this conversation about your story, music therapy, and what's going on at Lagom. So thank you.
Good morning, Robin. Yeah, thank you so much for having me today.
So tell us your story. Where did music enter your life, and what's the journey?
I remember at an early age being encouraged to learn an instrument. It all actually started for me with the violin. My mother was a violinist, and my brother was playing violin. So it made sense for me to take up the violin as well. And I didn't exactly practice, but I remember, playing from the age of 3rd to 5th grade. There was a big test in 5th grade to play Frosty the Snowman, and I didn't play it right.
Oh, no.
I was not invited to be part of the all-city orchestra in Norwalk, Connecticut, where I grew up. I didn't have what it took, and I thought it all was going to end there. The same thing happened to me with art. I wanted to be an artist. I took the test for artistically talented program, and I didn't get in. But it wasn't until middle school when a friend of mine came by with his electric guitar and played Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana. I'd never heard rock and roll before, but when I heard him play that, I said, that's what I want to do. Oh, and I went and I saved my $7 allowance, week after week. And I got my first guitar, and I remember it just opened the doors for a whole new reality, a whole new world. Rock and roll became my music. And at the age of 12, I started my first rock band. We had a drummer, we had the bass player. I was playing guitar and singing. And the things that we would just come up with, we'd be writing songs and we would just sing about all the things we're going through. I remember that being a major outlet for me as a teenager. And, my friends and I, we were not exactly, behaving all the time. We were teenagers. And my mother at some point said, you need an organized activity. So I chose to take part in the jazz band. I showed up to the band director and I said, can I be part of the jazz band? I had the mohawk hair, I had the spiked belt. And he said, what are the notes in the G major scale? And I said, a G? I don't know. Like, and he was like, come by to the auditions. And I showed up and I don't know what I was playing, but he let me in. And I remember that semester, previously I had some of the worst grades, so 1.8 GPA. It's like straight D's. That semester when I joined the jazz band, I went straight to a 3.5.
Wow.
And I also, when I attended concert, there was this kid, he was around my age, but he had been playing since the age of 6, playing the saxophone. And I just got suddenly inspired. I heard him. I remember that one night, I see him up on the stage listening to the saxophone. I said, that's the life I want to live. And I begged the band director, everyone else had been playing since middle school. Here I was at the age of 15 asking to pick up the horn for the first time. He let me join the band and I got my first saxophone. I started showing up at 5 a.m. to practice. Previously, I was hanging out smoking cigarettes on the street corner with my peers. I was now in the band room, learning how to play major scales and learning how to read the music. And previously, I had a lot of, issues with attention, reading. I actually was diagnosed with the receptive language processing disorder, which everything was like, it made sense. When I picked up the instrument and the music really like guided me to learn how to read more efficiently and learn how to listen more efficiently. So that whole time was like such a transformational period for me as a musician and as a person. And at the age of 16, just maybe a year after I started playing the saxophone, I took it right out to the street corner. I'm playing in South Norwalk in my hometown. And I remember people would stop to tell me their stories with music. Oh. And I still remember their stories. There was this woman who would stop by and she clearly was going through something. She had some psychosis and depression, like a lot going on. She would stop by and leave me a tip, and she'd walk around the block and she'd ask me for a tip. And I just became kind of fascinated. People would be stopping by and asking me about, how I got into music and sharing their stories with music. And at the age of 18, while I was a student in college, I went to pursue music professionally in undergrad, but I had this opportunity to volunteer in an inpatient psychiatric unit. And I would run groups with the patients that, I was as young as the youngest patient at the time.
Wow.
The stories I was hearing from the clients in this, inpatient unit, they reminded me a lot of my, passersby on the street corner. And I decided to kind of take it upon myself to work with people like that. And I've actually been doing it ever since. We're coming on, 15 years now in the field.
So what is it like working in the New York City system of hospitals, the variety of people that you meet and have to work with, and, be interesting to hear how they react to music as therapy? And
yeah, so mental health field has changed a lot since I first started. The language we use to describe things that people are going through, the approaches that we use to address things that they're going through has changed dramatically. I'm employed for the last 10 years at NYU Langone Hospital in New York City. And I've kind of grown with the organization. I actually started in a small hospital that merged with NYU. And to see the changes that they've made over the years in creating a person-centered approach to meeting patients, what this means is that the patient is an active participant in their own treatment. And when we get into music therapy, a lot of times people come in wondering, is my music okay? I have a lot of people, if they're listening to the punk rock that I was listening to back in the day, they'll say, am I allowed to listen to that? If they're listening to hip hop, rap, if they're listening to something that maybe there's some kind of shame around, or someone told them that it's not okay. The personal centered approach that we use these days, it actually makes it okay. Whatever is supportive for you, we're going to work with it. Mm-hmm. And when my clients come in, we run groups on inpatient psychiatry where people come from all different walks of life. We have people age 18 through over 100 years old, going through, all different things. We have parents, we have professionals, we have people who are homeless, people who are, not represented in the community. When they come into inpatient psych environment, this is like a safe space that they enter. And I've come to call it the world in a box, because this is not the type of environment that you see when you walk through Times Square, when you're sitting on a subway car. We don't always have the opportunity to open up to total strangers. The average length of stay on the unit where I work is about 10 days. And within that 10 days, people actually get to know their peers on a deeper level than they even know some of their family members or friends. And one of the goals that I use in music therapy is that people can express themselves without being, there's no retaliation, there's no shame, there's no judgment. That's the goal. Of course, there's always a possibility. But when we create a space that is conducive of a person being seen, a person being listened to, this can actually help them to see themselves in a new light. And it can also help them to express themselves more clearly. People are often surprised in music therapy at the person that they see when they look in the mirror. A lot of times there's an initial feeling that if they don't have experience in music, that music therapy would not be for them. But I find that it's most often the opposite. When somebody enters that space where they can pick up an instrument and play with a total stranger, that they discover something about themselves that they were not able to discover at home. So as I mentioned, we have people from all different walks of life that come into a clinical music therapy setting. We have people who speak English, and we have people who from other parts of the world who are admitted to inpatient psych who don't speak English. Right. And that can be such a scary experience. The music is something that we can use that is familiar. Actually, as a music therapist, I've every day I'm hearing new music that I haven't heard from different parts of the world, from different, cultures. And the music is something that can provide a sense of familiarity. I will never forget when I was an intern in a hospital, we had a psychiatrist who played guitar, and he would come in and he would play with us in the music therapy group. And to see how that really broke down the barrier between psychiatrist and patient. For a lot of people in inpatient psych, there is this dichotomy of the professional being in power, the professional being in control, and the patient being powerless, that they don't have rights. The person-centered approach is something, and the music therapy, they go hand in hand to help the person to help themselves. So when we see a psychiatrist picking up a guitar and sharing something like personal, expressing themselves, the music really draws like a kind of a safe space for community, a safe space for self-identity, for someone to be however they are. And when there's mental illness involved, you'll see the person who's going through the symptoms of a condition, and it can often be mistaken for the person. When a person comes into the clinical setting, that's not the whole person that you would see, like when they were 20, when they were 30, when they were 5. And I often look and try to see, this person has been here all along, and they're here today. And I'll never forget, there was a young lady in my first summer as a music therapist who was catatonic. She was not able to communicate. You would go up and you wouldn't get the response. I would ask, how are you doing? Nice to see you again. Hope you're doing okay. Right. And I just remember like that initial feeling, as a clinician, these people are struggling. They're going through something. But I went away for the weekend. I came in the following week, and she said, "Hey, Eric, nice to see you." And I just remember that like all of a sudden there's a person in there. And this is something that I see time and time again, where a person is going through Alzheimer's, there's a person in there, and there's this condition that is standing in their way. Music has shown to me so many times to reach that person and help that person to come out of the shell of a condition, the shell of a situation of being hospitalized, the shell of, going through various life stressors, being a student or going through financial hardship or being a certain role in the family. So many times we're told who we are by the people we live with. The music is something that can help us get more clear on the person that we are today, but also the person we've been. Mm-hmm. And when people come into a space in a music therapy group, of course, there's a first impression that we get. If we don't speak the same language, if one person's thinking very clearly and another person's not thinking very clearly, if one person has a lot of emotions and they're, very expressive, or someone is feeling numb, like I can't get in touch with my feelings. Mm-hmm. The music has been a way for us to meet. And the person-centered approach is something where it makes it okay to be whoever you are, going through whatever you're going through. It's a safe space. When you pick up an instrument or when you're listening, mm-hmm. This is something you can be part of that space. Yeah. So in my private practice, I've done some work with families, and particularly elderly geriatric patients who are newly diagnosed with conditions such as Alzheimer's. And there was one time we brought a family together. They came to sing with a patient. She was diagnosed with Parkinson's. She's not able to move. And they would tell me all the stories about how she was, she loved to ride horses. She had a music band and she was the singer. They would share with me old recordings of her singing. When we brought the family together, they all would sing her songs. They knew what songs she was into, and she started singing along. I remember there was a sense of empowerment, a sense of togetherness that the music brought, and the whole family to be singing together gave them that special moment. She could be seen and she could be heard again, mm-hmm. because so many times when a condition sets in and a person is not able to do the things that they were able to do before, there's frustration, there's sadness, there's all kinds of, stress that comes into the relationship, particularly when the children of the elderly patient is taking care of them and getting the services together. It's very rare to have that moment where we're together again. Mm-hmm. And the music is something, when we sing together, when we play instruments together, when we listen together, it can revive the past that person and their family lived together. I had a client who was, she had an old record collection that's been sitting in the closet for who knows how many years. She's well into her 90s. Oh, wow. We took out the record collection. These are original prints, by the way, no remasters. Wow. We have like the Simon and Garfunkel, the Sinatra's like first issue, like, wow. And we're listening and something about the way it resonated. I think like there's like kind of an awakening that happened. And it's funny because I'm listening to these original prints. I've listened to all the reissues. I'm listening for the first time and like joining her in her space. And there's like a connection that happens in that kind of clinical situation where we're listening together.
What did you notice about her when you were playing those records? How did her demeanor change?
When we put those records on, I could really tell that she was with me. She was listening, and mm-hmm. she wanted to take part in that. And previously, I feel like every step of the way seemed like it was an obstacle. When we put the music on, we were listening together, and it brought her back to a time where she was healthy.
So tell us what Lagom is all about, what you're doing.
Over the years, there's been a lot of metaphors that have come out of my work. I'll use, different exercises to introduce ways for people to practice therapy. How are you going to get from one place to another? And there's one metaphor that comes back to mind constantly is I would give them these, like, they're buckets, and you have, they hold markers. So we would put the buckets out and we would label each bucket. There's different parts of your life. There's are you getting enough sleep? Do you have enough time, alone time? Do you have enough time out socializing with other people? How's your money situation, right? So each part of your life goes into a bucket. Mm-hmm. And we would take the markers, we'd put them in. So how does your life look? What I noticed is that there were certain buckets that were overflowing, all the attention's going into money, right? And we know that's not always the answer. All the attention's going into socializing, and I'm not eating, or I'm not exercising, or my money is like, it's not managed, right? That exercise has actually kind of led into to so many things that I do as a music therapist. In music, we're balancing a lot of different factors like rhythm, tempo, how fast is the pace of the music? How's the harmony of the music? Is it consonant, meaning like it sounds pleasing? Is it dissonant? Does it sound like cacophony? You know? And Lagom is an approach. It's actually a way of life in Sweden, which means not too much, not too little, a balance. And this is actually the goal of the therapy that I've been doing. It really speaks to the approach that I've, every year I find like different ways to work with clients, but this has been in the background, the whole idea of balance and mindfulness, paying attention to what's working, what's not working, what's helping, what's not helping. Lagom is a company that I'm putting together to help advocate for that balance in treatment. So as we discussed earlier, music can provide an alternative means for working through stress and for communicating effectively. So in music therapy, we focus on that balance in Lagom to help reduce stress, to help take things that are confusing, that don't make sense, to help take the things that people tell us about ourselves that are not true, the judgments that are formed about who we are. Now, music therapy is something that has shown a lot of promising results for clinical practice, but it's also something that people can do to bring something to their life without a mental illness, without a condition. One thing that I've done as a practitioner outside of a hospital system is working on retreats. I've presented and led workshops. One that I remember was an environmental art therapy workshop where we would go out into wilderness. And I led a group of art therapy students. We were at the Marble House Project, which is up in Dorset, Vermont. We did a weekend-long retreat, and we would go out into nature. I had the students find materials to create instruments. So they went out in the hills of Vermont, the mountains of Vermont, and they found sticks and rocks and, branches and whatever they could find, sand, anything to make sound. And we all brought them back. You would hear them off in the distance, like kind of testing out the sound. You'd hear them clacking the rocks and making all kinds of things. And we came back to the barn. There's a barn at the Marble House where we put a song together using all of these materials.
Wow.
And environmental art therapy, this is an approach to creative arts therapy that is very in touch with getting in touch with our humanity, something that society and living in a big city of New York City can really take us away from.
Yes.
So when we got out into the wilderness and building our instruments, this is something that people actually used to do back in the day before Spotify, before electric guitars existed. And I remember that type of retreat is something that, we talk about creating balance, not just within ourselves, but within our environment and within our communities. People were working together, looking at, well, can I use this? Can I use that? I've also run retreats. There's an institute, the Esalen Institute in Big Sur, California. We did the Gestalt therapy, which Gestalt is a big part of what I do in Lagom. You may have heard this saying that the whole is different from the sum of the parts, which means that each person in a group is different from the group itself. When we come together and work together in music therapy, one person entering the group will change the whole group. Mm-hmm. One person leaving the group will change the whole group. There's different roles that come up in the music. Someone is the singer, someone is the listener, someone's the songwriter, somebody is the improviser. And that whole process reflects the dynamics that we have in our relationships, the dynamics we have in our workplaces, in our families. And when we do the work in music therapy, it really can help to kind of iron out, exercise ourselves when we are at odds with people around us, when we are in harmony with people around us, when we're in harmony with ourselves, when we're at odds with ourselves. So, different factors in music, harmony, tempo, tone, rhythm, they all play into that. So there are a lot of things happening in the field of creative arts therapy in New York State. This is the licensed creative arts therapist. So in New York State, licensed creative arts therapy is a license that's been recognized since 2006. And there has been a lot of progression in our field to get insurance companies to cover our service and to get certain rights to be able to diagnose conditions. Mm-hmm. Last year, we had a major legislation that was passed which mandated blanket insurance companies to cover our service. And at the last minute, licensed creative arts therapist was removed from the bill. Now we have a coalition. The website is lcatcoalition.org. They have a lobbyist who is going into New York in Albany to reach out to legislators to get us back on the bill. It's really unfortunate. As a clinician in hospital systems, I see the work that licensed creative arts therapists are doing. We actually have over 2,000 creative arts therapists in New York State now. And I read something on LCAT Coalition website that we are of approximately 14% of mental health services in New York State. And to see us removed from that bill, I've heard a lot of chit chat in the field how our clients are suffering due to that. Mm-hmm. The service we're providing is one that they can really benefit from.
So it not being covered by insurance is really detrimental to a significant population that truly needs these services. And
absolutely. And with the lobbyists doing this work, there's a lot of outreach being done. There are ways to get involved. If you're interested in, validating music therapy, art therapy, dance movement therapy, drama therapy, mm-hmm. This is a major time to, make a change.
Okay. And people can go to, what is the website again?
The website is lcatcoalition.org.
Okay. If they want to get involved to advocate for reinstating licensed creative art therapist coverage under health insurance plans. That's awesome, Eric. To me, it's a no-brainer. I can't imagine why anybody would want that not to be covered. And it's unfortunate and sad to see that that's actually the case right now. I cannot thank you enough for being here today and sharing your story and sharing the impact that music therapy has on people. And not only that, your own story, your impact, it must make you feel really good doing what you do.
Absolutely. At a young age, I wanted to be a professional musician. But when I got into working with music in a clinical setting, this has been the most rewarding way for me to take what I've learned, take what was beneficial to me and offer it to other people. And wow. As a experienced person in this profession, I really look forward to helping other people get involved in the field and, pursue the training that I pursued. I'm really looking forward to seeing, where this all goes and how we can, continue to make a change.
Great. Thank you again, Eric. Really appreciate it. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed today's episode. If so, please like us, share us, tell your friends about us. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can email me at thehealthabilityproject@gmail.com. Tune in next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us today at the Healthability Project. We'd love to hear from you, so please email us your questions, comments, or suggestions, including future guests, to thehealthabilityproject@gmail.com. And please like us, subscribe, and share us with your friends.